You also mentioned once that your theory of consciousness is something that we intuitively know, and that when you tell people, they had a suspicion. And for some people, when they stumble upon this insight that you also
Mhm.
elucidate, that they get depersonalization disorder. It can go two ways, where they feel liberated or they feel distance from their body, and it's net wretched and ruinous for them. What do you say to those people?
I would advise them to go to a real therapist, because I'm sadly not a therapist. I'm not competent of doing this. Don't listen to me if it gives weird experiences in your body. I cannot take responsibility for what's happening to you. So I'm just a cognitive scientist. That would be super dangerous, I think, and irresponsible if I just try to create weird experiences in your body as a result of my theories. So I would say this is a side effect. And it might be a side effect of you trying to answer a question that I have myself. And me answering this question doesn't lead to weird experiences in my body. And I have weird experiences in my body because I exist, right? Existing is weird. And I want to explain, why is it possible that I exist, that I experience, that I have a body? Why is it that this body sometimes feels very big and unwieldy? Why is it sometimes extremely small? Why does it sometimes disappear? How is it possible that I can have an out-of-body experience? I want to explain all these things, and I find plausible explanations that all make sense and are much more logical than the inverse of these explanations, right? So I find them helpful. And what I can offer people is suggested solutions to similar questions that I have, and I might be wrong with my answers. They're the best answers that I can give at this point in my life. And they are compatible with the answers that most of the other thinkers give that have looked into this. They are also largely co-extensional with the answers that a lot of meditators give. It's only that they are using a language that seems to be incompatible with the language that we have established since the Enlightenment in our own culture. It's basically, there is a disconnect between what we experience as being real and how we talk about reality in our culture. And this makes it so hard to make sense of consciousness and feelings and phenomenal experience and identity and transcendence and so on. And the goal that I have when I give these explanations to myself and others is to explain how we can get what we experience as being real, and what we also observe as happening around us in our interaction with the environment, and the way that we reason about reality, how we can put this into one, how we can construct a metaphysics that is compatible with our scientific worldview, and that allows us to make sense of what we experience.
What about people who fear losing control? That as soon as they have this insight that the mind is just, that you are just a story within your own mind, that you don't have control. Now you say, well, we have control, but I'm unclear as to who has control. It seems like the mind has control, and there's some relationship between the story that you're in and what's telling the story. I don't see that connection.
So they never had control in the first place. Yes. And I mean, you see this every day, right? There are things that you do that you would prefer you wouldn't do. At least most of us are in that state, unless there are perfect sages in the Taoist tradition, where everything that they do is in a complete union with their perception of what the universe needs to have done at that point. And most of us don't get to this point. It's very hard to cultivate your mind to this union where you have an identity between you perceive what needs to be done and what you do. And this discrepancy is something that we have to explain, and we can only explain it as us not being in control. And meditators describe this as the monkeys trying to prod the elephant, and the elephant just walking its way as it wants to. And sometimes it's aligned with what the monkey sees and thinks is important, but by and large, the elephant follows its own wisdom.
Do you have any advice for someone who finds that disconcerting, that the elephant is more in control?
I think it's try to not take the monkey that seriously, and try to sense what the elephant is doing, and realize that it's a much, much larger dance than the dance of the monkey on top of the elephant. But and it's also a larger dance than the elephant itself. It's the entire forest, right? And the elephant being part of it and being in resonance with it, interacting with it. And there's only very few decisions in proportion to the entire thing that is happening that can actually be controlled, and they can only be controlled in certain ways. And what you can explore is in which ways you can create a coherence between what you perceive that needs to be done, the global aesthetics of the universe that you prefer, the way the forest should look like, and this is a part of your task is to figuring out these aesthetics. How can this universe be coherent and consistent, and as a result beautiful? And what is the things that can be controlled as part of it locally? And you are the result of that. You are not the cause of that. You are the result of the local control. You are not the thing that causes the local control.
Now, the local control, you mentioned intuition earlier, that it's important to follow your intuition. And I assume that intuition, a component of that is your conscience, your heart. Is that a part of the elephant? So in some sense, you should stop trying to direct the elephant and follow the elephant as the monkey?
Well, you need to do both. But ideally, you want to have a state where the elephant is treating the monkey as one of its most useful tools. But of course not its only one. And the monkey needs to be able to shut up from time to time. And it can give the elephant feedback, especially when the elephant needs it. And so in some sense, there should be a friendship between the monkey and the elephant, in the sense that the monkey waits until it has its task and its time, and the elephant is actually asking it for something. The purpose of reason and analytical thinking is to repair perception. And when I mean intuition, I mean perception. Because
What do you mean that the purpose is to repair perception?
Perception is the part of our mind that is integrating information in a way that is not linguistic and not conceptual. It means the integration is not discrete. It's an integration that happens over many, many features, often in an irreducible way, or in a way that we don't yet understand. Imagine the way that you integrate information when you try to catch a ball. Right? You see how the appearance of the ball changes in your visual field, and as a result, you learn how to move to catch it. And if you try to do this analytically, if you try to compute the model with the capacity that your mind has, you're not going to be as effective than when you are using a perceptual model, which we would call intuitive, right? You train your intuition of what movements you should be making to get the ball. And when this is systematically not working,
okay, I see.
then you
I see
can
what you
use your reason to figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Or when you are already very good and you try to figure out, is there a way in which I could do it better? Right? Then you can use your reason to construct a system that is measuring your movements and using a camera and optimizing your technique, or simpler things like finding a better trainer.
Right. Okay, so there's a mismatch between what you want and then what you get, and the repairing is...
Yes, this is what reason is for. It's basically for dealing with these edge cases.